Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. It is 2.5. Okay, there's already one. There's 1.5. So all the way 1.5 all the way to 2.5 actually out there in favor of the Bengals on the road. Pittsburgh Steelers probably going to be with Mason Rudolph. I know there's a very slight chance that Kenny Pickett goes, but all the beat writers continue to say that this looks to be Mason Rudolph. Also a disclaimer, we are recording this a day earlier than we normally do. So we have less information than we normally do whenever we are giving this to you guys on a Friday. So this is coming to you on a Thursday. 38.5 is our total. Adam, I'll kick things off here with you. Cincinnati has surprised me for sure. Browning has, I'm not been good. I mean, but he's been serviceable. I mean, like Jake Browning looks like a guy that could be a pretty decent backup in the NFL. And, you know, if a team fell on hard times, could, you know, be a below average starter for them over the course of the season, which I did not think was going to happen. The Steelers team pretty much came around to where we thought they were going to be. We were disparaging them all season long on the pod, and I feel somewhat vindicated that we actually came back around to them stinking like we thought they were going to stink. And here they are, you know, clawing to any and all hopes, and Cincinnati currently eyeing a playoff spot.
Matt, another game for me this week in which if I trust my season-long numbers, I might stay away. But the trend lines on these two teams are so clear right now, at least in terms of where it really matters, which is Cincinnati offense versus Pittsburgh defense, and then Pittsburgh offense against itself. Because Jake Browning, non-garbage time, second half of the season, so go from week 8 to here. Number 3 in EPA CPOE composite. So you're talking about a guy who's completing more passes than you would expect him to and is adding more expected points to his team. I get that he's going to be without Jamar Chase. I just don't think this is the matchup where it really matters that much for Cincinnati. I think the market is still looking at Jake Browning as a backup, whereas he's probably in that class that is sort of Minshew-esque, which is good enough to start in what today's NFL is, and probably not good enough to be a regular quarterback if you want to say we're starting our season with 32 teams. So for me, I think this is Cincinnati. I think it's pretty clearly Cincinnati. One of the few sides that I feel comfortable with overall this week. What I love even more about what it's done to Zach Taylor in the Jake Browning time is that early downs, we're getting less of the runs, and we're getting more play action. And we're seeing Zach Taylor call things that give Jake Browning better opportunities to succeed, that it also would have given Joe Burrow better opportunities to succeed were he willing to do it more often.
Yeah, Steven, you look, I mean, so we had the Deontay Johnson stuff earlier in the year, and now this thing from this past week, you see George Pickens like not block at all when Jaylen Warren is trying to fight for a touchdown in the end zone, and then they ask him about it afterwards, and he says, I'm not about to get rolled up on like Tank Dell. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this team is like I mean, I don't even know. Like, we know Mason Rudolph's not any good. They would have started him a long time ago if he was any good. Like, it's so we have enough of a sample size just from this team itself to let us know that he's not any good. They went and drafted Pickett when they could have just turned to him. I mean, like, there's all kinds of reasons to know that he's not any good. And I'll admit, I'm surprised at what Cincinnati's been able to do. Now, DJ Reader is out for them, and that's a big gaping hole in the center of that defensive line. But again, against other teams, I might be worried. I don't know what I'm worried about here with the Steelers. I mean, it's just it's a non-existent offense.
This is like the third week in a row, too, that you still have some people in the betting community firing the Mike Tomlin narrative. Well, when you least expect it, Mike Tomlin's going to get these guys up to play. Like, I guess we're just going to keep martingaling this until the Steelers finally win another game at some point here, because they lose to the Cardinals. Oh, well, they'll bounce back. It's Tomlin against the Patriots. They lose to the Patriots. Oh, they'll bounce back. It's Tomlin against the Colts. And we're doing it again this week. It's stupid. It's stupid. This team stinks. They have locker room issues on top of it. You mentioned what Pickens said. What you left out is what Jaylen Warren said in response. He fired right back, said, I would have blocked for George Pickens. So like, this is a nightmare. This is a complete nightmare. The metrics back up the Bengals in this one, despite the fact that they're road divisional favorites here. Typically is something you don't really want to do a ton of. But not just the Bengals for me in this one under a field goal. I actually think the over is sneaky here too, because the Bengals defense is still bad, right? Like I know that you need to hope that Mason Rudolph doesn't submarine this over, but we're talking about a number that starts with 3 and might get lower when Jamar Chase is officially ruled out of this game. So when that happens, maybe we're looking at 37, 36 and a half. I think DJ Reader being out on that line is a big deal because they already ran the ball well against the Cincinnati Bengals the first time around, and we saw that they got gashed by Ty Chandler last week. I still think the Bengals win the game, but I think both offenses can move the ball here, even if the Steelers want to just try and hide Mason Rudolph as much as possible.
Yeah, so Jamar Chase is officially out. Zach Taylor made that announcement earlier today, and beyond that, the Rudolph situation, I'm on the other side of that. I think the Steelers are maybe a 10, 11, maybe 13 point team this week. I could see it over if you had something like 27-13, if you want to look at it that way. I think we're probably looking at something where Cincinnati is going to load that box up as much as it needs to and challenge Mason Rudolph to find something downfield, which I do not feel like is going to happen.
So I was playing devil's advocate to somebody talking about this game, and I said, listen, like if you actually think Pittsburgh has success at all in this game, I wouldn't even bet the side. Like Mason Rudolph's passing prop is at 189 yards. Like if he doesn't throw for 200 yards, like they're not going to win this game because they're not going to run for 200 yards. So if he can't throw for 200 yards, then I would almost just opt for the success from Pittsburgh coming from Mason Rudolph not being a complete joke. But I don't know. I feel like he is. So we'll see when it all comes into it. But an interesting game nonetheless, because like I said, Cincinnati is staring down a playoff berth right now.